In this recording, I want to show you how to create a main document for a mail merge, a regular letter type mail merge document. I'm going to be using my elephant data. I discussed these briefly in the first recording along with some merge concepts. This elephant data is simply a spreadsheet. Your data doesn't have to be in a spreadsheet. It can be a Word document. It can be an Access database. The book does a nice job of describing how to create your own from inside of Microsoft Word. But I've got all this data, and it must be about 11 or 12 different customers who have applied to be elephant adoptees. Right, so that data, I now want to create a document so that I can send them a letter. In the previous recording, I showed you the finished version, but now I want to show you how I can get there. So I'm going to open up my main document start. And I'm immediately going to save that so that I don't screw up my starter in the same location. You just take the word start out. Okay, and the next thing I'm going to do is show you how to turn on the field codes. Now, when you insert fields into a merge document, those fields can be highlighted using the mailings bar. But one of the things I do is I use File, Options, Advanced, and down here at the bottom, when are your fields shaded? Only when they're selected. I like to turn that on. I think I did this in Unit 4, so that they're always shaded whenever I insert a field into my document. That way I can see the fields. I'm going to click on OK. And now notice that the date here is highlighted. The date is highlighted because it is actually a field, and I've showed you in Unit 4, and I'll do it again here. If you press Alt F9, it'll show you the field code that's actually hiding behind there. What this basically says is take whatever the current date is and insert it into the document in this format. Now this is a field, but it is not a merge field. There are all kinds of fields. A merge field merges from our external data source. This date is a field that is automatically calculated as today's date. Just in case you've never done it, I inserted that by going to the Insert tab, the Text group, and here's the date. And notice there's an Update Automatically checkbox here. If this is checked, you'll insert a field. If you don't check it, it simply inserts text. So when I inserted that, I had this checked, and that's where that field came from. Now underneath that date, I'm supposed to insert the return address. Now all of that data is in my database, so I'm now going to start a mail merge process. The mail merge process, there is, by the way, a wizard that you can use to go through this process, but this version of the book doesn't use the wizard, and I can see why. The wizard really doesn't help much. But if you are having trouble, maybe you can use the mail merge wizard to guide you through the process. One other thing I want to point out while I'm here is if you accidentally turn on mail merge for a normal document, you can turn your document back to a normal document by clicking on this and saving it, and it'll remove any mail merge links. But what you normally do with the start mail merge is decide whether you're merging for letters, email, envelopes, labels, or directory. We'll talk about labels and directories in a future recording. Envelopes really not that much different. But in this case, and in many of the cases, I'm going to generate a form letter. And notice my document hasn't changed much at all, but it is now ready to accept field codes. Except I haven't linked it to a data source yet. None of this stuff is lit up because there's no data associated with this document. So that's next. I need to select my recipients, type a new list. You'll do that a couple of times in the homework assignment, so I'm not going to do it here. It's not terribly difficult. I'm going to use an existing list. And I have to go, by default, it goes into your data sources. Be sure when you save any of the data that you create in the book that you save them to your tutorial folders and not to the data sources. Mine is sitting on the desktop because that's my recording files are. And here are my recording files, and here's my elephant data. Yes, I want to use sheet 1. And now everything else lights up. Microsoft Word has linked this to the data source. It looks inside the data source and says, here's the fields that you have. And now I can insert these one at a time or many at a time into my document. If you want to do them one at a time, you just click here and it inserts them. Now Microsoft Word is not smart enough to automatically insert spaces, so you have to make sure you do that yourself. So I'm going to press the space bar. Now I want the last name. And again, I could insert a merge field or I can click on the button and it gives me a dialog box. This can help you occasionally, if you're careful, insert a lot of merge fields at once. I want the last name and the address, and the city and the state and the zip code. I don't need the phone up here. And it's inserted all those. It hasn't spaced them, but it's inserted them. I can click in between and move them down to the next line. After the city, I want a comma and a space, and after the state, I want a zip code. Now after the word deer here, I also want to put the first name back in there again. So here's a good place for the drop-down list, first name. And notice there's a couple of placeholders that I put in here to remind me that I also want the first name here. So I'm going to highlight that and insert the first name again. It's red, I don't want that, so I'm going to press Control, I'm going to click in the middle of it, press Control space. That removes highlighting, by the way, and turns it, actually I'm going to steal this and copy its format into there. It'd be easier, make sure I get my Times New Roman font. And here's where the city goes. So I'm going to delete that and insert the city field one more time. And that one's also turned red, so I'm going to use my format painter to just copy the format. And now I have placeholder fields, and they're gray because my field markers are always turned on. So as you can see, it's pretty easy to put these field names in here. Just put your own spacing, commas, any other characters you want. But these fields are only available once we've linked to our data source. So we've linked our main document, that's this. We've converted it to a merge document by choosing a type. Then we designated the data. Once those two pieces are in place, then you can insert as many merge fields as you want. And as you can also see here, Microsoft Word comes with a couple of easy ways to do some common things. One of the most common things you do with mail merge is put in address blocks, names and addresses. So let me show you how to do one of those. I already kind of have one here. This is my own address block with my own spacing and my own commas and stuff. So what I'm going to do is insert a text box. I'm going to draw it. I'm just going to put it next to these so we can see both and compare them. And then inside that text box, I'm going to go back here and insert an address block. When you insert an address block, you get to designate whether you want the address, whether you want them formatted with countries, and how you want the names listed. Just a first name with the suffix, with all these other things. And typically the default is okay because as you're mailing, you might not need the middle initials. In this case, we don't even have them. So that works pretty good. If you want to see how it looks, you can navigate through here and it'll show them to you. Looks good. Normally the default choice here is acceptable. Click on OK and it inserts a simple code address block. Now there's also a greeting line, kind of the same thing. So underneath I'm just going to duplicate my greeting line. Again, normally I wouldn't do this, but just for demonstration purposes so we can compare. You get to pick whether it's dear or to or nothing there. And then once again, you get to pick the name. Now in this case, I don't think that I want to have the full name there and say Dear Joshua Randall Jr. That sounds kind of formal. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to grab just the first name. Notice they do have some logic in the program to shorten some of them, but I've tried a couple of those and it shortens some names that I don't agree with. So I'm going to put this in here. And there's my greeting line. Now to compare these, all we have to do is go back to preview the results and notice here's Mary Smith. It's centered, that's okay, we can remove the centering, the spaces there, the 901 Broadway, St. Louis, Missouri with the zip code. So it's very, very similar to the one we built here. Same thing with the Dear Mary. The dear is part of the field now of the greeting line, okay, where here I built it on my own. And so read carefully when you're doing the assignments and please do them in the assignments the way they ask you to. All right. So now my main document is done. My data source is obviously available. I can navigate through the different records and see how they look. But when you're done, you finish and merge. Now I demonstrated this in the first recording, but I'll do it again because this is the final step. I'm now going to merge the data with these documents. If I scroll through this document, it's only one page long. Even though when I navigate here, I see different data, that's just previewing the data. I ultimately have to finish and merge. I could immediately print, I could immediately send to email. This is not an email, so I'm just going to edit individual documents. Almost always use all the records. If you don't use all you need to know record numbers, and that's pretty uncommon. All right, and notice now a new document has been created called letters 1. The other one just minimized. Let me bring that back again. And minimize that one. And so this one's one of my placeholders, and notice it has all the field codes in it. And here's the merged document. I'm going to save this. This is what the book does, and I'm just going to call this Elephants Merged. Okay? That's what the book terminology uses for merged files. Files that have been merged from the data and the main document. It uses main document for the first one. I like that system. It helps you keep track. Save it. And now as I scroll through this one, notice there's only one field, and that's the date field. Remember, that's not from the database. Every place else, the name, the address, all the fields have been replaced with the actual text. Here's the Richard again, and here's the San Diego. Notice they all match. And then there's another page for the next record. Different names, different addresses, different city, Los Angeles. And then there's another page, and another page, and another page, and we can see down here at the bottom that there's a page for every single record in the database. Right. Now when I go through these, though, I notice that they're not sorted very well. So I've saved this, but maybe I don't want it. I think I'll replace it. One of the things you can do when you merge, and this is from the main document, you can come into Edit List, and you can sort these by any of these fields. Just like in Excel, just like in Access, if you click the field name, you can sort by that. So I'm going to say that I want them sorted. There's only 12 by last name. Doesn't change the date anyway, it just sorts it in a different way. Now if I go back to record number 1, Teresa Baptist is at the first one, and then they go alphabetical. I can double check that, and then when I merge, right now they're alphabetical in the order, or in this document. 12 pages sorted alphabetically. The book uses zip code first, so if you're doing huge mailing lists, the post office will give you a discount if you sort them by zip code. So they do that, but in our case we've only got 12 records, so it's not so bad. Once again, I'm going to save this. Notice it's called Letters 2. It's just given a generic name until you save it. Often these don't even need to be saved. You look at them, preview them, make sure they're okay. Wait for it to save here.